Peter. Peter is our next presenter. Peter is a filmmaker. He's going to share some of the films that he's done. He's a great advocate for what we are doing here. And, my wife said if we want to be able to win the war, which I don't know if it's a war or not, but against the anti-cow activists, against the environmentalists who think cows are bad, which we probably have more in common with them than not, we need to be able to present a message with emotion. And Peter's been able to do that. And so we thank you. We're grateful that you're part of this. Take it away,
Uh,
Peter.
it's a pleasure to be here, Jared, and thank you to everybody who's organized this. Thank you for everybody that's here. Thank you to Roger. And it was Charles right before me. Yeah, Charles, beautiful presentations.
Yes.
So I am a filmmaker. I'm here because of climate change. That's my entrance into this world. I made a movie about solutions to climate change, and the soils kept coming up. And when I focused on the soils, I met a guy named Alan Williams, and Alan taught me that grazing was a way to rebuild soils in a beautiful, fast way, if grazed in a regenerative way. And so, with Alan and some other folks, we put together a team to do research to find out, compare conventional grazing to adaptive multi-paddock grazing across the fence. And the project itself is now a four-part documentary. It's called Roots So Deep You Can See the Devil Down There. We'll have a code for everybody, uh, uh, a 25% discount code for everybody. It's on the gift page. And so what we're looking at is, replicating the way the best land managers on North America did the job, which was the bison. And the farmers are working on making their farm into a prairie. And this is Cooper and Katie Hurst's farm in Woodville, Mississippi. And they break up their paddocks. They break up their farm into little paddocks. It's very adaptive. It might be this big one year and that big one year and change all over the place, move the animals with just how they see their forage going. And then across the fence is their neighbor, the Fergusons, who are many generations in, conventional. They have six large paddocks that they've moved their animals to
Hmm.
and fro, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Then they have a seventh that is strictly for growing hay, and they hadn't grazed that when we met them for decades. And so people ask, can this type of grazing go to scale? This is Birdwell Clark Ranch in North Texas. They have 5,000 head of steer, couple in their 60s, maybe with one other person. They're moving them two, three times a day in the growing season. So that's pretty big scale. And so we put together a large science team to study what's happening on both sides of the fence. And the items that we studied were the animal well-being, the farmer well-being, the water infiltration, soil carbon, soil nitrogen, the microbes in the soil, the bugs, the birds, the forage itself, how much ground cover there was, what's the nutrient density of that forage, and the greenhouse gas cycling, methane, nitrous oxide, and CO2. And we did this study, big science team, on these five towns in the Southeast US. And I can tell you, I'm from Kentucky. I'm from Louisville and or Louisville for anyone from there. And I'd never heard of any of these towns before we started this project in 2018. So I was showing you the Fergusons and the Hearst pair in Woodville, Mississippi. This is Wallace Ferguson, and this is his neighbor Cooper Hurst. Cooper and his wife Katie, they manage their farm adaptively, and Wallace is his neighbor, is his friend. They've been friends for 25 years at this point, and they talk about everything but grazing. So this is Wallace getting a chance to just sit down with his neighbor and ask him what's going on. And at this point, Wallace is having a hard time understanding that not putting synthetic fertilizer down it was still possible for Cooper to grow forage. And of course, Cooper's using his animals. So here you go. I'll be showing you clips for the rest of the presentation.
What does that make you think? Like what he's saying right there, that's not the way you work.
No, but it's I understand it, and but the thing is, I'm just saying that grass is going to grow when you put fertilizer on it. Without putting fertilizer on it, you'd think I'm wasting my time even planting it. But
Everything you're struggling with, we've been there. So you can't feel or say anything that we haven't said.
Yeah,
We've been there.
it's just hard to think of how you could do this without putting it up. I'm being honest.
Yeah,
I'm
it is.
telling you right now.
Yeah.
You know my dad. He's as good as gold. And you telling him you don't have to spend him. He loves that.
But
Yeah.
I'm telling you, Dad would eat it up. He loves the land. He loves the farm. He loves his cattle.
But if you're not spending money
Yeah.
wastefully,
And that's where we are. We are not into wasting money.
So I mentioned that we were studying birds. What I didn't realize, and I'm not a farmer and I'm not a scientist, that should be very clear. I didn't understand how important the bobwhite quail was to all the farmers we met. And so this is a section specifically about the bobwhite. You're going to meet Mike McGraw, our bird guy.
Yes, Bob White. Bob White. If they say their name, Bob White. Just delightful to hear that sound in the landscape. From the 90s to 2014, the bobwhite averaged approximately 5% decrease in overall population. So there's been over 85% population decrease up to 2014.
I do know this, Peter. When I was younger, they had quail everywhere. They're not there anymore.
So have you heard Bob White's while we've been here?
yeah, I have. That when we got right before we came on the porch, I heard that, and I kind of thought somebody was messing with me. You don't hear anything. But I have had a one or two 10 years ago.
This year, we're hearing quail from daylight to dark, from front to back, and everywhere in between. It really makes you think. It makes you think.
If the data
So I wanted to just let you know that these folks right here, that's Wallace's parents. That's Prentice and Margot. We're going to be hearing from them in a little bit. So once I had talked to Wallace about saving money, fertilizer, that quail are coming back, I thought he was going to be very open to learning about adaptive grazing and maybe even thinking about, adopting it. But I came back a year later and they hadn't talked at all about it since that time that we filmed the scene on the porch. So it was going to be a long haul. A year later, or a few years later, we came back and we gave the data to the farmers. I've compressed my presentation, so I'll just tell you on the conventional and AMP side, we averaged out all 5 farm pairs, all 5 on one side, all 5 on the other, and there was 13% more carbon in the soil on the adaptive side across all 5, and there was 9% more nitrogen on the adaptive side. And what's key there is that the nitrogen, the adaptive farmers don't apply nitrogen fertilizer, yet they had more usable nitrogen in their soil without writing that check. And it's pretty significant. Next thing we were talking about is water. Y'all probably know who Teddy Gentry is, the bass player, co-founder of Alabama. And so we were giving him some information on water. And we found that on his, on the AMP side, we're getting 3.5 inches of rainfall infiltration every hour. And it was two inches less on the conventional side, 2 inches less. So that 2 inches, just want to give you context for what that 2 inches per hour that the adaptive side's getting. So 1 acre inch is 27,000 gallons. 2 acre inches is 54,000 gallons. And if you have 1,000 acres, which a lot of folks in our study did, that's 54 million gallons. And here's Teddy's response to finding out his cousin across the fence, who grazes differently, doesn't have the same water infiltration that he does.
That's huge. I mean, that should make somebody want to change. I mean, that in itself, that in itself said, well, I mean, it's quite a difference. Wow.
So now we look at birds across the whole study, all 5 farm pairs, multiple bird counts over a 2-year period with 2 different people doing it. You can see that on the grassland birds, there's a heck of a lot more on the AMP side than the conventional side. And then when we go specifically to Kentucky, you'll see that that actual farm didn't have any grassland birds at all. And now you're going to hear from Mike McGraw again, our bird guide, and you're going to hear from Marie, who's the farmer that owns that land, that Marie Levasque, who owns that farm in Kentucky.
So it just tells a story of a functional system and one that's broken, essentially.
That's sad. That's really sad.
What makes it sad?
Well, because, I mean, they don't have any place to live over there. They need a place to live. Where are they? They should be there. That's horrible. That is, it's terrible.
What do y'all think about the science that we've shared with you today? What thoughts are you having about what you've been presented?
It's showing things that I've been doing wrong for a long time. And I said, well, I've been making a mistake all these years,
It's not about mistakes. It's just about, hey, this might work better. That's all it is.
What we're supposed to do now. How do we get the carbon back? How do we do this?
So once I heard Prentice ask me that question, I kind of felt like things were sinking in. There's a 84-year-old farmer who's been doing something for learned from his mom, who learned from his dad, who learned from past generations. So that was pretty cool. What we wanted to do then was just let time go. Now you're just getting little snippets of this. There's 10 farm families in our study and in our docuseries. You're just getting little bits. So when we came back in the spring, we wanted to see what wheels were spinning for the farmers. What data affected you more than any other data that got you thinking, or?
Hearing that the land is unhealthy because we have not got the species of birds that should be here. That broke my heart. So I want it to be healthy, That's our job, is to take care of it.
And so I mentioned that we studied the greenhouse gas cycling. This gets this beautiful amount of instruments. I could geek out for you guys for a long, long time, but I'm just giving you the headline. On the adaptive side of the fence, when you account for the methane, the nitrous oxide, and the carbon dioxide, the warming of the methane, the warming of the nitrous oxide, there's so much CO2 coming down into these systems, into these farms on the adaptive side, it's eclipsing the warming of those two greenhouse gases and it's creating a net sink. So it's a sink. So it's cooling. And so on the adaptive side, that's 12.1 tons of CO2e per hectare per year. It's an enormous amount. We also found on the farm that the conventional side was actually drawing down 2.9 tons. It was a sink as well. And we were surprised by that. I don't hear anyone talking about grazing being a sink any old way. But what happens after the farm will affect this greatly. If the animals go to a feedlot, then these numbers completely go away and you get into greenhouse gas sourcing by the way the food is grown, the grain and the manure and all that handling. But if you finish your animals on grass, you can look at making the world a lot better. It's not less bad, it's better, according to our research. So just looking at the Southeast US where our work was handled, there's 15.8 million hectares of grazing land in the Southeast. And if you get that 12.1 tons of CO2e drawdown, that's 191 million tons of CO2e coming down into the soil every year. If you get all farmers to change, so it's a giant if, but just what can be done. And so in about 5 years and some change, you'd be getting a gigaton. Now, these numbers are massive, and these numbers are profitable. This isn't a tax. This isn't a carbon market situation. This is just people farming with nature, using animal impact on their land. This is what we could see. And of course, this will only happen if the farmers want it. I would highly recommend no one ever tell a farmer what to do, but if we can give farmers incentives, that's pretty good. Show folks that this is going to save money and make life a lot better. That's a good idea. And one of my good friends and one of the best teachers I know is Alan Williams, and Alan's on our team. He helped us site select a lot of the adaptive farms. And so what we did after we showed all the conventional farmers and the adaptive farmers the data, we said, does anyone want to meet Alan Williams on the conventional side, and learn more? And 4 out of the 5 conventional farms raised their hand and said, "You bet." And so we did a final sort of sweep with the cameras and Alan, meeting all the conventional farmers that said yes. And 2 of them, who you've met already, Wallace Ferguson and Marie Levasque, not only did they want to learn from Alan, they wanted to try it that day. And so this next 5-minute chunk of footage is that. And then I'll come back in. I'll have a little time for Q&A. Here we go.
So we'll go down here, we'll set up our polywire.
Horse grass is tall, ain't it?
It is.
And hook it in and get it charged up. And then we're going to open the gate and let them come in and just observe what they're doing on this strip.
Okay.
So Marie, is this the first time you've done amp grazing?
Yeah.
Wallace, I guess we're ready if you want to let them in.
Okay.
And we'll sort of stand back because they're not used to us.
Coming through.
Whoa, they're coming through. Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. I was afraid of.
What's happening?
They're going back out. Let them go. Let them go. This is not going to work.
We're going to have to regroup.
So Wallace,
Yes.
they don't quite understand because they've never done this before.
Be nice to just get one to go around that corner though. If one went, the rest would go. But I appreciate the help trying to get them down here for right now.
Oh, no, we tried.
Yeah.
We tried. The thing that did surprise me the most was the fact that we had 80+% of all the conventional grazers said, we want to make a change.
It's the first time in my life, I've been at this for over 60 years, that I have actually seen that. Within such a short period of time, people amenable to even discuss it, let alone consider and asking questions on how do you do it.
I was inspired by the trust that's been built. And that's not something that happens typically between researchers and ranchers.
Are you excited about trying something new?
I think it's gonna work. So I like the way it sounds good.
You know, some people aren't as willing to change. He's really been supportive of it. He likes this. He's just as impressed as I am.
2 hours after we had left Marie and Billy's farm, one of the cows made her way through the creek and to the pasture.
2 or 3 of them went, then they all just went. Once those 2 came, then I just got out of the way and the rest of them come on, First time I've ever set it up like this and did it this way. And they seem to be pretty happy with it too. They're actually getting a field with a whole lot more stuff to eat and a whole lot more nutrients, So if I can learn a better way, then I'm going to try to do it. I don't even remember how you guys got our information to come up and check our farm, but I'm glad you did.
Right this morning, I can tell you, I'm gonna go get them all in there.
You're going to try it again right now?
I'm excited about even just attempting to do it. It's like a no-brainer right now. If I'm not successful, okay, I at least tried it. That's why I'm looking at it.
You're all in. This is Wallace Ferguson's first hemp paddock success. How you feeling?
Good. That worked easy. That wasn't bad. So I appreciate it. I'm gonna be honest, I'm really glad Peter told me you will come, and just what you told me this morning is a lot of information, but it was good, detailed information that never had ever been explained to me before.
Right.
It's kind of making a lot more sense to me now. When I met Peter, and they've never you never really pushed me on anything. I think that might have helped.
Technical
You know,
master.
if you say, "Hey, this is the way to do it," and I'm hard headed on certain things. I am, and I'm that's I guess normal, but
Hey, Wallace.
yes,
What I've been thinking as I've been watching, it feels risky for anyone to change the way they're doing something.
Mhm.
But what I'm thinking now is the real risk is not changing. Would you agree or disagree?
I'd say yes, it'd be risky not to change it. You're not gonna make money doing it the way I've been doing it. And I've got proof across the fence. If I can get it to growing grass like my neighbor here, Cooper's got, it make me very happy. We'll see. I just know Cooper had quail over there. It made me mad. It was good to see it. It's good to
Oh,
hear it.
absolutely.
You know.
Yes, sir.
So there you are. So I was hoping we'd have some time for Q&A. So let's Q
Yeah.
and I'll try to A.
All right. All
Is
right.
there anything out there?
Why don't we do this? If anybody has, we will, yeah, Steve Kenyon says a picture's worth 1,000 words. A video says it all. Peter, what do you feel like it takes to make a person be willing to change? Like, is it data? Is it seeing it? Is it what is it that makes a shift?
To me, I think I think the farmers on the regenerative side were actually curious already. I think that they were seeing something they hadn't seen before across the fence. They could tell the grass was rich. They could tell the animals looked good, but I think they just didn't want to get in their neighbor's business. I think they were being polite, quite frankly. And I think the adaptive farmer on the other side, most of them are first generation farmers, most of them, and new to the community in that they weren't born and raised in the community, maybe, and maybe have only been there 20 years. And that's, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not joking. And and so they didn't want to toot their own horn. They didn't want to tell people what to do. So I think what I learned quickly as a filmmaker and just being out there with the farmers a lot, because I was out there when all the science teams were out there, was that there was curiosity, but there wasn't necessarily communication yet. So I think just, I liken it to respectful listening, the way I like to make films and I teach and I like to tell my students, respectful listening goes a long, long way. Being heard has always made me feel good. Not being heard has always made me feel not good. And so I think just curiosity, right? Curiosity. How are you doing that? Tell me more about why does your grass look so good, right? That would be like an amazing question for someone to ask. And I can tell you that the adaptive farmer will do anything to teach their neighbor as much as they want to learn, share as much knowledge as they want to learn. Um, so I think finding out what means something to a farmer, we saw the birds, we saw how that worked so deeply with Marie Levasque. She realized she wasn't providing grassland habitat. And that also worked with Margot Ferguson, Wallace's mom. She went out and bought uh, like a whole bunch of different seeds the night we gave them uh, the data. She went out and just bought a whole bunch of different seeds because she really wanted to change that situation. They had an equally diverse bird situation. Um, Cooper and Katie Hurst, I think, had it was 6 or 7 bird species, but 183 of them. And the Fergusons had 2 species, but 3 of them, and the difference was so stark. Water infiltration, I think, is a very important piece. Saving money. I mean, Cooper talks about he wrote a check for $90,000 for fertilizer one year and he got no growth. It was just like blowing money away. So I think saving money is really good. I see there's a Kentucky, hello from Kentucky, Crestwood. Used to ride my bike out there when I was little. Our bird paper, 13 papers are published. So you can dig into all the details at rootsodeep.org. And there's a tab says published research. And all of our 13 papers are there, and the bird paper is just got published last month, and you can geek out on all the different species that were there. Um, yeah, and Steve Kenyon, how are you, sir? Um, I'm looking for your link on there, man. Oh, maybe it's below. Okay, cool. Cool. I'll check out your link now. We'll get that going. Thank you. Any other let me just show you all just so you have a visual of it. See if I can get this up quickly.
Yeah, and then talk a little bit about so the link that you shared that's on the gift page, Margot will share that. Do you have a promo code to be able to buy? Oh, there we are. So take a screenshot of that.
That'll
Roots. Okay. PRS.
PRS 5 and then OFF. That's not a
OFF.
zero, that's an O.
Not zero FF. That's an
And then
OFF. Got it.
our
Okay.
website is rootsso.org, and it's a 4-part docuseries. So
I love it. That is wonderful.
any
Very
other
cool.
any other questions for us just while I'm here, or do you need to save time, Jared? Get the day going?
No, this has been wonderful. Yeah, I know there's a lot of context questions like does this work in arid environments, brittle environments?
Yeah,
Maybe address that one real quick because
sure.
you know all of your studies were done in kind of the east and probably more humid.
Yeah, so this study was in the Southeast US. The second part of the study is in the Dakotas to have a very, very different ecosystem. We made a series of short films while we were designing the study. It's called Carbon Cowboys. So if you go to YouTube and you go to the Carbon Cowboys channel, that's also our handle on all our social media at Carbon Cowboys. You'll see 10 different films from 10 very, very different ecosystems. One not too far from Charles, down in Cornwall and Devon in the UK, New Mexico, Canada, Mississippi, Kansas during a drought, Missouri, just everything. And then you've got Alejandro Carrillo's work down in Chihuahua. We're going to hear from another fellow who works down in Chihuahua in this summit. They're changing their desert,
Yeah.
and so I haven't everywhere I've been to film and or help look at science or just visit the Karoo Desert and semi-arid or very arid part of South Africa, depending on what year. I saw amazing, amazing results down there. And one farm we visited, they were moving their animals 10 times a day, 10 times a day,
Wow.
and having
Yeah.
amazing, amazing results. I just have to say hi to Nicole. I see Nicole Masters there. Hi.
Peter, I'm going to see you in Tasmania.
Are you going to be there? Oh, yes.
Yes, pumped.
Awesome. Perfect. Good, good, good. And
Yeah.
so I've seen it work everywhere I've been, and Alan Williams is my guide, and it just these everything's got to be specific, context to the specific farm, even or to the specific week. But then there's these universal principles that are just making farmers' lives better. You know what I mean? Just making them better. And good to see you, Tony. Tony Malberg. Thanks. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
curiosity to me, right? That's the game. That is
Yep.
the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Brandon, yes, the Dakotas I would think would fit the low rainfall area. Um, I see a lot of thank yous. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not a producer.
Please send Peter some love. I mean, this is it is a labor of love, and yeah, we we are so grateful that you're able to join this.
Can I
To
say
be able
one
to,
last thing? One last thing.
please do.
I know we're at time. Oop, we went a minute in. Sorry, buddy. Our social media campaign at Carbon Cowboys, just so you all know here, the world is watching this stuff, and we've got a bunch of clips that have been up over the last year and a half, and we've just topped 100 million views on those clips that we're putting up there. And it's across all political spectrums. It's across the whole thing. People from cities to the country, big countries, little countries around the world are really inspired by what you all are doing, just like I am. So I just wanted to say, I'm grateful for you all.
Well, thank you. Yep. Yep. That is great to be able to have the support that we do from you. So Peter, everybody give Peter a big virtual round of applause. Yeah, awesome. We're grateful that you're part of this.
Thank you, sir.